Noel Nation, welcome in to the debut episode of the Renegade Rundown. It's my honor to have two guys in here, that are, big time Florida State media guys. One, a former fullback, big game James Coleman, give it to the damn fullback, MFTK Foundation. He's on the Voice of College Football Wednesday live streams. He's a co-host of this other guy I'm about to introduce you guys to, Chris Frazier, the owner of Spearatics Media, one of the most knowledgeable guys in the game. These two guys have helped me out a ton. It's awesome to have these guys, get in here and be on the first episode. And with that, welcome in, guys. Thanks, y'all, for joining me.
Appreciate you having me.
I second that.
Recruiting, man. Let's jump right in with what everybody wants to know about. It's been a great couple weeks. You land 2 5-star DBs within the span of a week, and DB Charles Lester, safety, KJ Bolden, get him over Georgia, Ohio State. Just Mike Norvell is just on an absolute tear. After everybody and their brother was on our case, on Mike Norvell's case in June, he told everybody just be patient. There's going to be fireworks in July. And sure enough, I believe we almost doubled the amount of recruits that we've landed. It just so happens a couple flips have happened. So we're down to, I believe, either 20, or I think 20 recruits now from 21, but 12 commits in the month of July and right there at the beginning of August. And now there's all these rumors about possible flips coming in our way. I'm on record saying that I think landing KJ Bolden was a giant piece in possibly getting Jeremiah Smith to end up coming to Florida State. He's already been here 8 or 9 times. And I believe y'all had a conversation about a possible defensive lineman flip on y'all's show not too long ago. If one of y'all wants to jump in on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of heat and smoke around the situation of Artavius Jones. He's a verbal commit to Miami. Florida State's been in on him for quite some time. He came to the big Seminole weekend, the last weekend of live recruiting. He stayed in touch with Coach Odell. He stayed in touch with Coach Fuller. Miami fans and boards are all expecting him to flip. And you could say that we're going to have a trade-off because a lot of people are anticipating that McCoy, the wide receiver that we've got verbally committed to Florida State, is going to potentially flip over to Miami. But we don't know how that's going to go until everyone knows exactly what JoJo Trader is going to do, because from every bit of knowledge that I've accumulated through this whole process is that McCoy does not want to play with JoJo Trader. I don't know if that's 100% accurate or true, but it seems to be based off of he's not committed to Miami at this time. And before Abrams flipped to the Florida Gators, everybody was more worried about McCoy. And JoJo not too long ago made a verbal commit to Miami, and then all of the whispers of McCoy potentially flipping to Miami went away. So JoJo's still going to be taking official visits. He's going to be coming to Florida State this fall. I still think Florida State's very much in that process. I think they have a big possibility of flipping him as well. But we'll have to see how it goes. But I think there's going to be a couple of trades between us and Miami at some point in this transition of recruiting.
Yeah, I think what people have to do, recruiting is a momentum thing. And the goal is to finish the race. It's not about sprinting out in the beginning and being hot and then losing that. When you don't have wins and you don't have something to sell, you do need to go ahead and you want to get that early momentum. But when you're really trying to kind of wait to find, let people see the product and you got a time to trap people, you want to be able to get them closer to that time, which is the end. And the end goal really is, the middle of December when they have early signing day. And obviously then you still have your opportunities in February. And I think the way Mike Norvell is doing it, especially if we go to the playoffs. Now I'm going to give people a peek into the mindset of of how offseason is going to go. And if you listen to, I'll say Chris more so than myself, Chris does a whole hell of a lot more work than I do when it comes to this, educating the masses. But a year ago, me and Chris were the only people discussing Florida State not only leaving the ACC, but leaving the ACC to go to the Big 10. Fast forward, that's been dominating the offseason. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If Mike Norvell is able to make this college football playoffs, people are going to talk more about the general manager position at the collegiate level and using that to leverage and create winning programs and recreating and redistributing the talent well. So they knew last year that they were going to return a lot, and that 2023 was the year to make the push. So there was no need to go bring in over like a whole bunch of young players. Oh, excuse me. They also knew 2024, that was going to be a season where you lose some guys. So let's bring in some veterans that we're going to have that are going to be 2-year holdovers. And that will help us in 2024. Now we bring in some heavy blue chip prospects in that 2024 class. It's not going to be that much of a fall off. We're still going to be a 9 to 10 win program. And then 2025, we're going to come out here and kick people's teeth in with a young team that's poised to make a multiple year run. So when you look at it from that perspective, Mike Norvell is a freaking genius if it works. So now 2024, you've got an opportunity to bring in like guys who are going to literally make your team better from the prep level, and you still have space to be able to go get the best players in the transfer portal. And why I really think people are going to write stuff on this is the genius in it. 2024 is when APR comes back into effect. So you can't just turn over an entire roster anymore because you got to account for those guys graduating. So now you can only kick so many guys off, and you can only bring so many guys in. So I'm not going to question what I can understand people questioning because he hadn't brought in the top high school kids, but I'm not going to question who he brings in because one thing we've seen so far is that he's a pretty dang good developer of talent. And then lastly, what I'll say is this: if we go back and we don't judge the COVID class or his transition class and his COVID class, has Mike Norvell been a really bad high school recruiter? Okay, you lose Travis Hunter, but we haven't ranked. People are judging it based upon where we finished in the rankings. And sometimes when I just go and I look at stuff, I'm like, well, what is consistent with a top 10 class? And I looked at the top 10 classes, and the top 10 classes all had 25 or more signees, except for if you looked at the top 20 classes, I think all but 4 teams had 25 or more signings. And what is Mike Norvell's class not having? What he has not done since he's been at Florida State? He hasn't signed 25 guys. So I don't really know if he can't recruit high school kids. He hasn't really focused on it until now. And now we're seeing him bring in not only the top talent, the buzz is there. And it's amazing because this happened with 10 wins. Imagine what happens for the 25 class as he goes in, because there's some kids that I know who are committed to other places in 25 who are keeping an eye out on what's going on with Florida State. So I think people, if you're still saying Mike Norvell can't recruit kids, or you're still saying that other stuff, I think sometimes we latch on to opinions and we're going to die on that hill when you don't have to. You can, like, admitting that you were wrong is not like unmasculine or it's nothing wrong with that. It's only wrong on Twitter.
Man, cognitive dissonance runs rampant on Twitter. There's no doubt about it. Man, I loved everything you just said right there. I did an article way back. It was either at the end of November or the very beginning of December. And I said, look, Mike Norvell, he's ahead of the curve, but he's ahead of the curve in a way that nobody else can even see the curve, like at this point. And he goes, and like you said, those classes were smaller. I believe he averaged 17th in those recruiting classes prior to this current 2024 class. But he did it only bringing in 17 high school kids, like you said. And the one thing about the guys that he brought in, he only brought in guys that he truly in his heart believed were Florida State guys, could play, and were going to stick and be guys that he could build his program around. He didn't grab guys to inflate the composite score that he knew couldn't qualify. take no crazy shots on projects that he knew probably weren't going to work out. He was just getting his guys in there, and he did the same thing from the portal. And now we're seeing those, just desserts at this point, and it's a lot of fun. Like you said, that 2025 class is going to be something. The early returns and all the different 5-stars and kids number one at their position. Kids like Jaden Perlate, if he ends up staying in the 25 class. Speaking of linebacker, I saw a tweet yesterday from a guy, I believe his name was Will, and talking about the 3 linebackers that Florida have in their class, and kind of devolved into the conversation of resources and recruiting, and are they wasting resources putting that much in to 3 linebackers? You look at Florida State, we're not going to take 3 or 4 guys like that. We probably never would. Kind of the direction of football is more to 4-2-5 defenses, just because what are you going to do when they have 3-4 wide receivers out there? You're just not going to be able to play those same defenses. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Just curious, you can start it, or James, either one. Just kind of, where do y'all fall on that side of it? I tend to agree with a little bit with what Will was saying, but at the same time, I would like to maybe do a little bit more resources from FSU's end, but definitely not to where UF is.
Well, I think the main reason that Florida State seems to be a little bit thin on recruiting at linebacker is because of what you've actually got on the field at this moment with bringing in Omar Graham Jr. in the 22 class. People haven't seen what he's going to be. You've got Nichols that you brought in the 2023 class. And what you could have returned back to Florida State's a big deal. But also they are taking, as of right now, 2 in this class, in the 24 class. And they've got a couple more that they're looking at. But in the defensive scheme of what Adam Fuller, Randy Shannon, and everybody's putting together, people kind of need to look at your safety almost as another linebacker in a way. It comes down and plays nickel, stuff like that. And you need them to be a little bit more of a tweener, more so than that gap guy. College football has changed. You don't have a bunch of hard-nosed running teams to where they're just trying to man you out as far as the offensive line and pushing it up the A gap or the Y gap. That's not what everyone else's game is. There are some that do so, but you just don't need the type of linebacker, the prototype of the Derek Brooks and things that you used to see at Florida State anymore. It's not feasible for what we run. Does that mean that you don't recruit linebackers? No, that's not what it means. But you're going to be really, really in particular on what you get at linebacker. You're going to be very picky, so to speak. It's got to fit an exact measure of what you're looking for. You want a little bit more speed out of them than you did previous in college football. Florida State, the way that they run their defense, they're just not looking for that downhill guy at every linebacker position, middle and outside. So I think what they're doing seems to frustrate some Florida State fans because they want to see a 5-star linebacker. They want to see the big headhunter, but you're more or less need to look at your defensive ends, and that's also changed a lot in college football. If you look at the defensive ends, they're not near as big as they used to be. They've been better. They're a lot taller than they used to be. They're faster than they used to be because they're going to be your edge guys. And that's more important in today's game because of the spread offense that everybody wants to run. So you need that worst case scenario, that edge, and it sounds crazy, but there's a lot of times that you'll see a Jared Verse when he doesn't just bum rush after the quarterback because he's got a running back coming out for a wheel route. He's at minimum going to clip that guy. But if you don't have the speed of a Jared Verse or others that we have, you're not going to be able to do that. And then you would need that downhill linebacker. But then once they get past the 3 or 4 yards off of scrimmage, they're not fast enough to keep up with that running back anymore. So you need the tweeners. You need the guys that are faster. It's more about coverage, keeping everything in front of you more so than it is stopping them at the line of scrimmage. You get tighter as you get, closer to the 50, and then you might see some bigger men come in, especially if they're running the ball on you. And everybody's fear right now is that's what LSU is going to attempt to do to us. And it is true. Brian Kelly is a run-first guy, but they don't have the necessary Jimmys and Joes that they're going to need to push our defensive line around. So they're going to have to go to the pass a lot quicker than I think people anticipate.
I think it just comes down to, again, a lot. What media influences us so much that more than what most people think. And a lot of people don't really know football in the manner in which they believe they know football. And this is no knock or like disrespect. It's just the facts. The first point you brought up was it is purely based on the spread. Like, basically, the system dictates what type of defense that you put out there, which is what makes Georgia what makes Georgia's offense so good is that they've got 5 tight ends. They can literally go out there and run an all tight end set, and you're going to have to either put your big boys out there. So that's when you actually are okay. Well, yeah, I want more linebackers in a goal line or a smash, a 2 tight end, a 2 tight end, 2 fullback set, or 22 personnel. But you can also, those guys all run 4-6 or better. So I can go spread them out and play. And now I got linebackers covering big wide receivers and vice versa. Now, everybody doesn't have that ability, but like if I put out, and I posed this question on the same tweet that you said, please recruit 5 and 6 linebackers every year. I love it. Because when I go out there and I put Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Destin Hill, which looks like it's going to be our starting 3, and I'm gonna put Jaheim Bell out there. If you run a 4-3, God bless. We're going to have a lot of success. You're probably going to have to damn near, because especially if we flex Jaheim out, you're probably going to have to run the old school the dime defense from Madden or something like that. That's the easiest way to explain it, where you have one linebacker in there. Or what you're going to do is use your energy and your resources in recruiting more safeties. In recruiting this, and then somebody brought up, well, you have 2 edge, and then, you have your linebackers, and then you have this. I said, so what you're saying is a safety that got a little bit bigger that can cover, and the defensive end that's standing up. Because that's what people think a linebacker is, but that's not what a linebacker. And it really comes down to, and if anybody wants to go see the cosign, Rob DeLoach, son's pretty damn good linebacker, literally said, you're preaching right now. And as a guy who coaches high school ball, I love the biggest mismatch on the field is a running back on a linebacker. And it's not because the kids aren't any good. It's been like that since I played. You don't have enough time to teach the nuances of pass coverage to a linebacker in high school because they're from school from 8 to 3. Then you only got 2 hours to pick them up. They got to eat. It's just not enough time in the day, and they're not going to go study the film the way that you would want somebody. That's why you typically see people make that growth in college, but they're not going to do anything for you. Plus, you can only play 2 of them. You need 2 of them at a time. So if I recruit 6 this year, what am I going to, and I'm just bringing guys in, what happens next year? What happens the year after that? If I bring in 2 guys for the next 4 years, that's an 8 deep linebacker room. That's a lot of linebackers. So I would suggest, I like the idea of, especially when you have one corner that's a hybrid, one safety that's a hybrid between the corner and the safety. In a perfect world, that's your Jalen Ramsey. Then you have another one that's a hybrid between a linebacker and a safety. In the perfect world, that's your Derwin James. Or even a poor man's Derwin James is a Jamie Robinson. You're still not going to typically find those guys, but that's kind of what you're more so looking for. But those aren't real linebackers. If you're looking at Florida State, what is Florida State is what in their 4-2-5? What are they looking for? Downhill thumper and a coverage guy or a guy that can spot. That's what you get with Tatum Bethune. Tatum Bethune isn't as good in coverage as Kalen DeLoach, who Kalen can pop, but I will give Tatum Bethune the better tackler. All right, what does that look like after that? DJ Lundy, more like Tatum Bethune than he is like Kalen DeLoach. Blake Nicholson, Omar Graham, more like Kalen, more of an in-between of Kalen and Tatum, but I would argue that he's more like Kalen than he is Tatum. Blake Nicholson, more like Kalen than he is like Tatum. Cryer, the guy from Northwestern, more like Tatum than he is like Kalen. Okay, I think nobody's really explaining what the situation is and why it's not as bad. Because when I say it like this, you're like, oh, well, okay, well, damn, looks like maybe Randy ain't doing as bad as he was doing. But it's not gonna get you clicks. Like you got to find something. We won 10 games, man. Like nobody, like for me, fifth quarter sales are going up because we're winning. And the only time that goes up is when you're winning or coaching search. When you suck, it's like nothing. Views are going up on everybody's stuff. Memberships are going up. All this stuff. Everybody's happy Florida State's winning. Well, I got to create some controversy. Well, this guy sucks, or Odell sucks, and it's kind of like, well, do they, or do they just know what they want? Clemson is the perfect example of being consistent during this time. Clemson recruits almost like 10 players, regardless of the position, regardless of ranking. They like them. The first guys commit, like they go boom, offer the 5-star. We want you. You want to commit? No. Offer the 4-star. We want you. You want to commit? No. Offer the 3-star. We want you. You want to commit? Yes. Boom. Close the room. They got guys they like. I think that's kind of what Mike Norvell is doing. It's the guys they like, the guys that develop. And, there's some guys that we have in this 24 class, the young man from South Florida. Everybody likes him now. Nobody really knew who he was. The kid from South Carolina, I can tell you this much. I know for a fact, Dabo Swinney called his people in the room, and why the hell did we not offer this kid? Now, maybe there are some that are like not as slam dunks as others, but I think a lot of it we have to just – I'm not a guy who's like, give me the 3 stars with heart, but I'm also not a guy who's going to say like, we got to have a class of nothing but 5 stars. Jimbo did that, and Jimbo has consistently done that and has consistently not won anything. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's great to have 4 and 5 stars, but you got to be able to bring the right ones for sure. You can't just bring anybody in because of where they're ranked. Everybody in the chat wants to talk realignment. I was going to talk practice and then get into it, but I guess we can go ahead and get into it. Everybody wants to know. I believe it's going to be Tuesday that we finally get the deadline, the August 15th deadline on, if we are going to be able to want to leave by next school year. Personally, I don't see that happening. I think we may hear something from our people, but if anything, it'll be, looking at possibly 2025. Is there anything new you have on that, Chris?
I can't speak on it.
Can't speak on it. That means something something's brewing, folks. But if Chris says he can't speak on it, it's something pretty serious. Go ahead, James.
I would just say it's a complicated situation that's going to take things to clear up, whether it happens or it doesn't happen. But I can tell you this right here, and this is just me. Chris might, correct me off camera because he can't speak on things. But like, just think about I'm teaching everybody how you can be a beat writer too, people. If you have logic and common sense and you can read tea leaves, you don't need somebody in the building to know that Florida can't make $80 million a year and Florida State make 30 and this continue. Like, I'm sorry. It doesn't take when I saw people that I think are actually rather intelligent saying this, I'm like, yo, you are bugging, B. But if we do, which we are, 2024, there is this little game that would really cause a mess if we got out of the conference before that. It's in Dublin, Ireland. It would cause a lot more headaches than it would be to just finish out the season. And it's also always good to have your last hurrah. Texas, Oklahoma have done it. Many guys have done it. It's not that it's impossible to happen. It's just not logical to happen because you inadvertently affect a lot of other things when you just pull out like that. So like it's a situation where I would say if it's at the earliest to me, just again, this is using deductive reasoning. We're probably talking about 26, and it may even be longer than that. But here's the thing: I can promise you this. It will happen. It's just a matter of when. And I think we're going to have a lot of buildup to where we're laying out a case because you can't just say, I'm out. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been a long time coming. over 10 years dealing with this particular grant of rights deal contract that they signed back in 2013 and extended in 2016. Back then when this whole thing started, I want to say the SEC went from like 24 million a year to like 30 million, and we settled, ended up somewhere about 24, 25 million, somewhere 6-7 million behind. Like Florida State was fine with that. When you look heading towards 2036 and you've got a $50 million gap, like you said, we're going to be at 30 and we're there at 80. It's totally untenable. And the big question is Big 10 or SEC. I've talked about it a lot. Big 10 makes the most sense. I know you guys have both talked about it a lot. There's that conflict of interest there with the ACC and the SEC. Do they, reach some kind of deal to try to keep Florida State in the SEC? That's kind of been the popular theory the past couple of days. I keep telling people, I don't think so, but I wouldn't mind it. It wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened. But to me, I'm going to stick with what I've been saying. That's all signs point to the Big 10. Chris can't speak on any particulars, anything that's happened recently, but if you've watched this show or listened to these guys talk over the past years, Florida State is well on their way to getting the AAU research designation. They've been really just putting all these pieces into place since Michael Alford took over as athletic director, moving over from the booster department to make this happen kind of behind the scenes, if you read the tea leaves, like James was saying. So just hold on, guys. We'll report it as soon as we can, but I think we'll hear something by August 15th. Like I said, and like James said, I think you're looking at 25, 26 before you see Florida State with that Big 10 or SEC patch, on their chest.
I'll say this. Rumors is that there may be a stencil for a particular for a conference already ready. So like it's not that it's like far off. It's just like I said, guys, it will happen when it happens.
Everybody thinks it's as simple as saying we're leaving. We've already said that. Like in so many words, Florida State has clearly stated that we're going to have to remove ourselves from the ACC conference unless something radical happened in the revenue. The only way that I can see Florida State staying in the ACC, and it's not going to happen, but the only way that it could happen is if Notre Dame joins 100% to the ACC conference and brings that NBC contract with them. And then they got to learn how to share. Right now, that's the issue. They don't want to share. They have full voting rights, which is also BS, with only being a partial member. What the hell is a partial member anyway? I mean, it's ignorance. But it's the same reason that Notre Dame doesn't want to join. It's the same reason that Florida State and Clemson want to leave. It's not hard to figure out. Right now, Notre Dame can get paid more money independently than they can if they join the ACC. Why would they give that up? The only way that they're going to be forced to give that up is if College Football Playoff Committee or the NCAA says you can no longer be independent and go for a national title or end up in the playoffs or what have it. Well, they're not going to say that. The reason they're not going to say that is because of how much money it brings to them if Notre Dame is in that conversation. It's all about money, and Notre Dame knows what they're doing, and I have nothing against what they're doing. I actually think it's smart. As much as I don't like that it affects us in the ACC, it's smart for them. And guess who they're watching out for? Notre Dame. Notre Dame is looking out for Notre Dame. If and when, not if, but when Florida State decides that they are going to leave the conference, it's because they're watching out for Florida State. It's as simple as it gets. Florida State will eventually leave the ACC. Will they announce it by August 15th of this year? We'll see. But what I will say is only if they say it on or before August 15th that Florida State is looking to leave the ACC and they will be going elsewhere. That doesn't mean that in the season of 2024 or the season of 25 that Florida State is going to be out of the ACC. You have to put all of these plans into place, and it's more it's a lot harder to change conferences than it is to change your britches every morning. I know that people don't understand that. They think it's just, put the Big 10 on the logo, on the school, and go play Big 10 teams. It's not that simple. If it was, then it would be done already. When you're in the situation that Florida State's in, with the grant of rights being a possible situation for you, which Florida State's very confident that they have that managed. Now it's more so of what you've already got promised to your fan base, what you've already sold as far as the 24 season goes with going to Dublin, what you've already got in place for all of your university is set for the year of 24. It's not officially set for 25 yet. So what I would think you would hear if they announced on the 15th or before the 15th, you would hear Florida State is actively going to leave the ACC after the 2024 season comes to an end, or after the 2025 season comes to an end. That's what you're going to hear. It's not going to be, we're leaving the ACC, 2024, we'll see you at the Big 10. That doesn't work that fast. It takes a year to come up with a year exit plan on how to do this. Do I think Florida State's done their due diligence and done so? Yes, I do. Do I think they already have a plan in place to do all of this? Yes, I do. Do I think they're ready to submit that to the general public, the ACC, and the other conferences of body? Not yet. The reason it's not yet is because they're 100% getting all of they're crossing all of their T's and dotting all of their I's, because the last thing that they want is to remove themselves from a conference and it hurt Florida State in any way more measurable than what it costs you to get out of the conference. So you have to do things in a very legal, diplomatic way. You don't just say, the hell with you guys, we're gone. It just doesn't work that way. This is a business, whether people want to see it or not. You have to do this to where you don't burn bridges behind you and you don't blow the ones up in front of you. So the way you treat this conference on an exit, it shows a lot to how you're going to treat the conference that you're entering. So if you go and play Wild Wild West with the ACC, then it does become a question of, well, shit, if that's how they play this, do we really want them in our conference? What happens when they get mad at us? Are they going to do the same thing to us? So now when you do it 100% the correct way, which is the way that Florida State's going to do it, then everyone can accept and understand that Florida State is doing this basically just because of the unfair revenue share. That's as simple as it is. They had no choice. They were put in a corner, and they had to make this decision. So once they do so, I see us in the Big 10 or the SEC 2026 when we actually play a Big 10 schedule or an SEC schedule. I would see it for the year of 2026. But you're going to have to announce it way before then. So either it's going to be announced in 2024 or it's going to be announced before the 15th. We'll see which one happens first.
All right, you heard it here, guys. I totally agree. I threw out 25. Both of them thinks 26. And Chris brought up an opener in Dublin in 2024. Well, we're only about 3 weeks away from an opener in Orlando, Florida, September 3rd against the LSU Tigers. I believe we've had 8 practices of fall camp so far. James Coleman has been able to be out there a couple times. We're about to get into that, talk about practice. But if you're planning to come to the game September 3rd, if you haven't already, chances are if you're watching this, you probably have. You need to get lined up with Chris and James or CJ Wilson with the Dope Talk YouTube channel. 36 Degrees Tailgate. James, you want to take it from there and let the folks know about it?
Oh, yeah. Basically, your favorite Twitter people. We're going to have some of the best I guess none of us are reputables. It'll be all the best coverage that you typically like, with food that you actually like, with beverages that you actually like, with stuff that you actually might like to do around people that made you like Florida State. So not us, not even me, former players, a lot of people. It's going to be a great time. We're expecting to have a pretty big turnout. Probably have to watch how I promote and advertise it now, so that now that we're not under the radar, but we will have multiple lots We'll have multiple different food options at different lots. We'll also have a covered area, and potentially, hopefully, we'll know next week, we'll have air conditioning. So it'll be a really, really good thing. Chris knows me. This would be like his third or fourth one that he's seen me do, and every time it's just I'm like a squirrel or whatever. I'm like, oh, this would be nice to have. Let's do this. Let's figure this out. But the cool thing about this one is that we've had a lot of people reach out to make this event, and not just big businesses, but like true fans. Like, because I joke about the fails that I have. I have no fear of failure. I tried to get white people beer. That was a very difficult task. I did not know the undertaking in which I was taking on that. But Ology, which is a bar, which has 3 bars in Tallahassee, they stepped up and said, James, we're not going to let you fail this time. We're going to help provide beer. And then I had some guys who are fans that work at Anheuser-Busch Factory. We will have Mick Ultra. We'll also have another brand. Drink it or don't drink it. It'll be cold. It'll be there. We have cups if you just want to pour it in there so nobody sees you. I'm with you. I really don't care. But we will have Mick Ultra because I learned everybody likes Mick Ultra. We've got about 2,200 water bottles or bottles of water that we'll have. And it's just going to be a lot of different things. So down the stretch, we're going to be promoting a lot of the vendors and a lot of the sponsors that are going to be there. And we will have a block party that Friday. Keep saying Friday. That Saturday night, that is free. Now, you have to pay the vendors for food. You have to pay for beverages if you want them. But the band, the DJ, it'll be a great time, great vibes. Just come out there, hang out. Just a little alternative to what everybody else is offering. It'll be more of a mixed bag of music as opposed to one particular type of music, not discriminating on anybody. But we just, I think Chris, CJ, I think I can speak for everybody, Chip, George, yourself, and everybody. When we say we just want to encourage people to have a good time, and our respective followers and subscribers and groups to come in and mingle, and that's what it's about. We want to change the culture of what the FSU game is like. Like, even if you can't buy tickets, I believe you should come and be in the city, not just Orlando. I think if you can't get tickets in dope, come to Tallahassee and see what it's like game day and create an atmosphere. I think we could create a competitive atmosphere that will make recruits and other people be like, yo, this town is nuts when it's football season. I got to be a part of this.
I was asked a question on our last show. It was actually a really long written out question. People are extremely excited to come to the tailgate for their first time. They've talked to friends of theirs that have been to the tailgate. They've watched videos of the tailgate. And then the question was, how come y'all don't ever speak on security, or y'all don't speak on if you come and act a fool, you'll be removed? And I said, because we don't have to. Everybody knows that. Like, it's just common knowledge. If you come and act a fool at our tailgate, you're going to get removed. And then they were like, well, there's some people out there that are, might be multiple acting crazy. I was like, y'all ever seen the size of the people at our tailgate? Myself, I'm not small. James is not small. All of the former football players we bring back are not small. Chip's not small. We just don't have small people. And if we need to remove somebody physically, we won't have any problem with it. But we never have to. We never get into those situations because everyone comes and they have a really good time. The worst thing that could happen to any of us is not us, but there's been a couple people go to sleep. That's about it.
Yeah, you just got to, there's a certain, I'm not sure if it was a van, but there's a cooler. There's this guy who wears glasses. You got to stay away from that guy. You might end up being asleep on a tailgate, at the tailgate. So just, buyer beware. But man, I can't wait. I wasn't able to make it last year. I was at the spring game tailgate. And if that's any indicator of what this is going to be like at LSU, man, guys, I'm just telling you, you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a ton of fun. But like I said, we got the opener coming up. James, you will be able to be at practice. That's kind of like, one of my goals. I can't wait to be able to get to see those practices. And you being a coach and a former player, you really get great access, that even most of the media don't get. And I know there's only so much you can say, but man, the reports back from the safety position and Iota Fossey as of late coming on, the excitement is building, and just the look of these practice videos that we do get to see here, as the kind of the public, everything seems just like totally different than it was last year and the year before. It's just they're operating on a level that, far be it for me to call it championship level, just, sitting on the couch watching these highlight videos and stuff. But it's just like everybody knows exactly what they're doing. It's kind of the opposite if you see some of these clips from like Miami and some other schools. But couple years back, well, not a couple years back, over a year ago, but the 22 season, I believe it was either spring or heading into fall camp, he told me it kind of looked different this year heading into camp. How much is it ratcheted up this year, and how much different is it even from last year as we head into it? When you look at the team and having what it takes to possibly go out there and compete for that ACC championship and making a run at the playoff.
So I have it's the excitement is there. It's a different level of expectation. So what it was what you saw was a paradigm shift. I could tell you, we went 5-7 in 21. This team was way better than a 5-7, a below 500 ball club. So when you see that, you're like, ooh, wow, ooh, this feels great. Now when you go back, it's not the same. It's good, but it's like the shift isn't that much because they weren't that far off from being what TCU was this year. Last year. So what I'm looking at though is across the board size, and the questions that everybody has is, do we have the depth? Now, again, let's just talk numbers. You only travel, when you're going away games, you only travel 65 most. You don't ever travel 85 scholarship guys. No team has 85 cats. Not even Georgia, not even Alabama. It's impossible to have 85 guys that can just play. What you do, though, is you want to make sure your 2 deep is really, really good and a couple swing guys. If we're getting to that third string safety, I got news for you. National championship's probably not in our future because you got to be healthy. But our top 50 players, I believe, on par with anybody. When it comes to it, just depends on which position and where you want to go. But, I'm liking what I'm seeing from the guys that have to develop. And I'm not just excited about this season. I know what Jared Verse can do. Don't give a damn if Jared Verse practices. Saw it last year. I know what Johnny Wilson can do. I know what some of these other guys. I know what Trey Benson can do. What I don't know is what Keziah Holmes can do. What I don't know is what Rodney Hill can do. What I don't know is what Brandon Fisk brings to the table, what Destin Hill brings to the table, what some of these line and how they participate and how they practice. I don't know what IoT can do. So what we're getting is in this part of camp. Now, once they get the game prep, things will change. But you're getting in the foundation building part of camp. I'm getting a chance to see a lot of guys, and my excitement isn't waning. Now, are they as good as maybe a Darrell Jackson would have been in this position? No. Well, Brandon Fisk is. He's everything that's advertised. But some of these younger guys, like, is Rodney Hill Trey Benson? No. Well, is Rodney Hill what Trayshawn Ward was when he first took over the starting job? Yeah. Yes, he is. Is Keziah Holmes is really good? Yeah. Is Sam Singleton, the freshman, good? Yeah. So that's what's impressive is when the vets know how to be a vet. So that means they know when to cut it on. They know they get mental reps. They're getting conditioning. They know when I get this, I'm not losing reps and I'm losing experience on the field. But young guys are getting quality reps and they're competing and they're banging against each other. But I'm going to say this. Ayo made me say Ayo at the end of goal line. He had 3 plays where he was absolutely unblockable. Like just destroying stuff, wreaking havoc. And when I said that, they were like, he feels at home at nose. He's just so much stronger than most centers, and he knows he can overpower that guy with his bull rush, and he's just going to do it. And I think having guys like that that aren't your starters only gives you hope for what the future is, because I think we're going to have a couple guys who are going to show us some flashes in some of these games, and you're going to be like, yo, the future's bright here.
No doubt. We've been talking about Ayo, hyping him up. And I believe we had somebody in our last space, come talking trash, saying something about like, yeah, y'all love him. He's a fan favorite, but he's not a coach favorite or something like that. And then immediately, I guess, the next practice we get that report like you just brought up about Ayo killing it in that goal line drive. I believe one of the players tweeted out how unstoppable he was, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that was pretty funny. Chris, I know we've talked about quarterbacks a lot specifically as far as the practice, and even myself kind of fell for the kind of thing coming out of spring, thinking that AJ Duffy might get passed up and possibly transfer. We're looking at having 4 quarterbacks by the time Luke Cromenhawk shows up. What are you seeing or hearing about AJ Duffy and the whole quarterback room throughout camp so far?
Well, I think a lot of people started counting AJ Duffy out during the spring game because they I don't know, man. I get that Brock is doing a really good job, and he is. He hasn't fell off at all. He's been very consistent. But AJ Duffy brings a little bit more maturity. Also, he's learned this playbook a lot quicker than I think most people would have anticipated. He's doing a really good job all the way around. And then here in the past, well, this whole fall, really, he's really shown his maturity. He's taken the chances down the field because that was his only question mark. He's trying to be too conservative with the football. He doesn't want to throw interceptions. He doesn't want to turn the ball over, which those are great qualities to have, but you have to be able to make those window throws. You have to be able to get the ball down the field. And he realized that he has exactly what it is that he needs to take care of the football, and yet at the same time put it inside the window and get the ball down the field the way that it was expected to be. He's starting to stand out a lot in these past 2 or 3 practices. If you watch his footwork, that's probably what I'm most impressed with. Jordan Travis is obviously really good at footwork. Everybody knows that. But if you look at the drills, AJ Duffy probably is the best footwork guy we've got. And yes, that's over Jordan. But only because you can do it in drills doesn't mean that you're going to be better at the game. But it looks really good when you can see a guy move in and out of the pocket the way that he does. He's got that little shift that he does before he makes a throw in case someone's getting into the pocket with him. And it looks really Tom Brady-like. I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was not the most athletic human being in the world. But he can make this one little shift move, and then it's like people miss him by an inch. And when they miss him, he makes this crazy throw downfield. AJ has started to realize that he doesn't have to do as much as he thought. He doesn't have to scramble completely out of the pocket. He doesn't have to make a big play with his legs every time. He started to realize he can trust his wide receivers down. He started to realize that he can trust that tight end check down, the running back check down. He's just starting to learn to respect the others that he's playing with, and that the ball is not always in his hands. He can give it over to the next guy and they'll carry on. So I'm really excited for what he started to learn, what he's starting to show in fall. I mean, it's going to be a battle next year. We will see who the guy is going to be, but I don't just hand the keys over to Tate Rodemaker. I don't not give them to him, but I'm not handing them over. I think that you're going to see a three quarterback battle, and then if you bring Luke Cromenhawk in, he's going to push him even farther. I don't think you see him in the mix to start or anything like that, but he's going to be so good that they won't take a step back. So you're going to see a hell of a quarterback battle between the 3 gentlemen, AJ Duffy, Rodemaker, and Brock. You're going to see them really battle it out. And I think AJ has just as good a chance to lead this team as either one of the other guys. And I think people will realize that next season more than they do now.
Hell yeah, you love to hear that, man. I had high hopes for Duffy when he showed up, and he always looked like the compact athlete that was really gonna shine. And it's funny you mentioned his footwork. Excuse me. That makes a lot of sense. Looking at him coming out. That kind of brings us to Jordan Travis. You kind of mentioned it. His AJ Duffy growing to learn to spread the ball around, et cetera, et cetera. Jordan kind of didn't have any choice second half of 2021 when he first kind of solidified that starting role. His starting top three receivers were like 6'1", 6'1", and I believe 5'8", something like that. And here you are a couple of years later, and he's got 6'7", 6'4", 6'3", all conference guys, all guys who are close to 1,000-year seasons. His slot guy, Winston Wright Jr., I believe, had close to 800 yards at West Virginia the last year he played. He's got Trey Benson coming back. James mentioned it. Keziah Holmes, a dude who was kind of like a phenom at Penn State a couple years ago, was I believe a 5-star just beast coming out of high school. He's got the keys to a Ferrari. It's kind of like you have to go back to 2012, 2013 when you had these weapons kind of like set at every position. You had the tight end, you had the super tall wide receiver, you had the steady-handed Rashad Green, you had Devontae Freeman, while also having James Wilder Jr. to smash it up the middle. We kind of have that everywhere. We even have a fullback and our linebacker that they bring over for goal line sets. So I couldn't be more excited. And personally, I feel like there's kind of this graph when you look at it, our offenses and defenses that went from like 100 something to like 60 and 50 to last year finally being down to 15th defense, 10th offense. And most people look at it and they say, okay, this is where they're going to plateau. But I just firmly believe we're going to see another level at that line of scrimmage on both sides, and especially the wide receivers and running backs and tight ends, especially going to that next level. You're replacing walk-ons with guys like Kyle Morlock and Jaheim Bell. So how excited are y'all for that LSU game? And do you think that what do you think about that matchup, I guess, would be the best question, the FSU offense versus the LSU defense? And I'll take you off mute, James. Sorry, we had a little echo going on. I cut you off there for a second.
Oh, no, it's all good. I think the biggest thing is going to be, again, what will Brian Kelly's defense and those guys' defense do when we put out the matchups? And like you have a really, really good linebacker there with LSU. He'll be a sophomore. But is he going to spy Jordan Travis, or is he going to be the guy that's going to be in charge of Jaheim Bell? With DBs, you lost one of you hit the transfer portal heavy for DB, and you lost your best guy. Who's going to handle? What are you going to do with Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson? Are you going to bracket coverage one of the best wide receivers in the nation, or are you going to let your guys try to go mano-a-mano and play cat ball? And if you're playing cat coverage, now you have the ultimate breaker of cat coverage, and that's Jordan Travis. You cannot defend a heavy run game. So either you're going to put 7 in the box or 6 in the box. The 6 in the box is equal. So you're either going to trust your D-line is that great, or your front seven is that great, or and go 6 in the box, or you're going to go or you're going to go go 7 in the box, or you're going to go 6 in the box, and you're going to have one-on-one coverage with those guys. So I think you have to it's going to be interesting, especially with the secondary being the weakest part of their defense. And I like to see Mike Norvell challenging them early, and we'll know what this game is going to be like after the first quarter. I think it's going to be a good game that will go down to about the fourth quarter before somebody breaks away. But I think it will be a really good heavyweight boxing match where somebody's going to get knocked out. And it's not that bold. It's kind of like if you watched the Spence fight, the Spence Crawford fight. Crawford's the only person who could do that to Spence. And he beat him pretty good. It wasn't that Spence isn't good. It's just that Crawford had an answer for everything that he did that night. And I think that's what you're going to see. Eventually, somebody really, really talented is going to get knocked out, but you're going to go see them knock out a lot of other really talented people for the rest of the year.
No doubt. Kind of like last year.
All three be enjoying these after the game.
Let's go. He's got them lined up.
I've got more, but I don't even know if they're any good. I was asking James because someone donated all these to me.
What are we working with there, James? What kind of
Oh,
cigars are we
those are
looking at
quorum
here?
cigars. That's the house cigar for ABC. Those are very good.
Okay.
Those
I'm
are very
ready.
good cigar. That's a very good, like a $5, like a very reasonable smoke. I joke with people. I get cigars for free. I get paid to shoot guns, drink alcohol, and smoke cigars. If you try to smoke a $10 to $20 cigar, even if just once a day, that's a lot of money. Like, I wouldn't do it. But what you do is you find one that you like and you enjoy it. That's a weekend smoke. But that quorum cigar is a good cigar that you just, you know what? I just need a stick today. You pick it up. It's rolled by one of the top rollers. It's a really good, like, yeah, it's good. That's a good smoke. That's a really, I have some of those in my humidor, and that's a good smoke.
Yeah, hopefully Mr. EJ Green is there, man. I can smoke one with him for a little bit. I got to talk to him for 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the last tailgate.
So
What a great
cool,
guy,
right?
man. Probably the
So
coolest guy I've
cool.
ever met. You know, I didn't even realize who I was talking to for the first 10 minutes. So he was like, you know, my name's EG, by the way. And I was like, Green? Okay.
He told me,
Holy
like,
crap.
I didn't, like, Peter Ward said, that's the best, like, at Bobby Bowden's funeral, he said, that's the best wide receiver to have ever played at Florida State. And I heard him say that. I didn't meet him at Bobby's funeral. I met him at the spring game, and he was like, I got to text him. Like, he ran up on me to talk. Like, this is what I'm telling you. This is like, when it comes to this, Chris, I'm a fan too. I was a fan before I was a player. I have no idea why these people talk to me. Like, I have no idea why I can pick up the phone and call Peter Ward and he's going to answer. I have, like, when E.G. Green was just sitting there, like, he was like, hey, man, I want to hang out with you. What are y'all doing tonight? And I'm like, you're E.G. Green. Like you want to hang out with me? Like, what are we doing here? I don't know how to respond. But, yeah, I got to make sure he's coming to the game. I got to make sure we get him at the tailgate. But, so, this is, again, these guys are dope. I like them.
For sure. We're getting close to an hour. Do y'all, we can do defense and then maybe do some predictions for the people. I know Chris already put his score prediction in the chat if y'all want to check that out. But we talked about the offensive matchup, and then it comes down to that defensive line versus that offensive line. Last year, they were super young. You know, this year they're a year older, and, you know, all the SEC homers are telling us that, you know, oh, it's going to be a whole different deal. These offensive linemen, they're all a year older. These are all SEC guys by the end of the year, SEC West champs. As if Jared Verse didn't get any better, as if Ayo Tapasi, you know, wasn't even here last year, et cetera, et cetera. Chris, you want to start us off? Do you have anything you want to mention about that matchup?
I think your defensive star of the game is Kalen DeLoach. And the reason that I think that is because I think he's going to keep Daniels in check. I think he's going to stop a lot of big run plays when it comes to Daniels. But I think defense in totality, a big question mark, you know, for LSU, they have a decent wide receiver room. It's not great. It's not excellent. It is good though. It's I just think that our DBs with adding a Fentrell Cypress, seeing what Shaheem Brown is doing at safety, seeing what Gant's capable of doing at safety, Jarian Jones during the mid-season of last year going into the end became really good. I mean, there's just too many to name that I think they're going to have to run the ball on us, and I don't think they're going to be extremely successful at it. There's going to be a lot of short throws. They're going to take their chances down the field, but I think that's when you've got the AZs and the couple of guys with interceptions that are going to happen because I think with adding Pat Surtain, he's really put an emphasis on getting turnovers for this defense, especially for the DB room. He's showing them how to jump routes. He's showing them a lot of different things as far as hip movement goes. I like their hip shadowing drill that they do with the wide receivers. I'm extremely a fan of that because if you read the hips of the wide receiver, it's like watching a magnet. A shadow. You're technically always with the wide receiver at that point. And I'm not taking anything from Woodson. I'd never seen that drill at Florida State before Pat Surtain was here. I never seen the shadow drill before. I think it's helped our DBs out in the corners. Safeties have just really, really grown really close to covering one-on-one man-to-man. And I think we lacked a little bit in that last year. We weren't the greatest man-to-man coverage in that room. And now I would say that Florida State looks the part of being a top-notch room back there. So I'm extremely excited. I don't want to sit here and say that Florida State in any way is going to shut LSU down from scoring in all totality. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we keep them to a low scoring event, because I'm extremely excited for this defense. I talked about it last year, talked about it going into the offseason, that visually to fans, the biggest jump of production that you're going to see is on the defensive side of the ball. I think that there's going to be more visual evidence that this defense has stepped up in multiple ways. As far as defensive line goes, if Fabian Lovett, Fisk, Farmer, you just keep going down the line. If all of these guys are in good shape up the middle, and then you've got Pat Payton on one side and you've got Jared Verse on the other side, I'm sorry for whoever plays Florida State, and that includes LSU. Whatever they get, they're going to earn it. Ain't nothing going to be given to them. So I think that they got guys that better make some really good plays, because our defensive line is going to be headhunting in that game, and I'm very confident in their ability, and I think they're going to do a really good job.
Yeah, to me, Jaden Daniels has got to be able to hit the deep ball consistently if they're going to be able to outscore us. And I just don't see it happening with who we bring back. I love that breakdown. What do you think, James, before we do our picks? You got anything you want to talk about with their offense? Is there anything you're worried about, any particular matchups you see that could possibly benefit them, or vice versa?
No, I actually think they were better last year offensively with Booty, or however you say his name, and other things that we got to remember. Our guys there shut them down. A lot of people look at the score and say it was a close game, but it was not a close game. It was literally dominated by Florida State until the last 5 minutes, where we went into a situation where we played prevent. And now prevent, there's a saying in football, prevent only prevents you from winning games. Now, had we scored when Toafili fumbled the ball, game's over. Game, set, match, up 3 scores. They're going to do what they naturally do. They fold. I talked about it in my last spot covering FSU, but they didn't. And I think the defense that we played allowed for them to pick up big chunks of yardage, because we were afraid of getting beat deep. And then we got the ball back on offense, and I believe we went 3 and out. So we put ourselves in some really bad situations. Or if we didn't go 3 and out, we went out really, really quick. Now, I think with the offensive line being a little bit more improved, having a little bit more weapons, we're going to not only score, our offense will dictate what our defense does. We have the ability to score quick, but we also have the ability to use TOP to our advantage, which is time of possession. Run the ball, take your ball, and go home. So I think what we'll see is Mike Norvell try to get to that point where we have control of the game, but not get conservative so early and go ahead and go for the jugular. The one thing that's happening, and if anybody listened, I told Derek McClendon this time last year when they were in Jacksonville. I said, you guys have to learn how to step on the neck of your opponent. You know how to get your opponent on the ground, but you don't snap the neck. You have to snap the neck of the opponent, meaning you have to literally take it out of them. You can't just hope or wait it out. But I think the defense is fine. I actually think the defense is not talked about as much because we have this narrative in our head of what the defense actually was, when I believe our defense was one of the strongest pieces of our team last year, in particular, the adjustments that they made in the second half. I think our offense let our defense down 3 games in particular. And if we're firing all cylinders, I think Florida State would be a special team. And I think a lot of people will owe Adam Fuller a huge apology, but knowing the way people are going to do it, they're going to just give all praise to Pat Surtain.
Well, hey, Pat Surtain's the man. You know, he's our Alex Atkins on the defense. It's kind of what we've kind of pinned it. We'll see. It's just year 1, but that's another big part of our defense that I'm hoping improves, is that zone look from the DBs. You know, it's been a kind of funny competition, but we're already over an hour long. I don't want to keep you guys on here too long. I guess I'll start it off. I'm thinking the more closer we get, I'm thinking somewhere. I think both of the teams are going to score, but I'm somewhere in that 38-27 range. Maybe 38-24 is what I really want to say, but I don't want to go out on that big line. I'm going to call it 38-31 Knowles. LSU scores a garbage time touchdown right at the last minute. But 38-31 Florida State. What do you got, Chris?
I put it in the comments earlier, 38-27.
38-27.
I think it'll be. I think we're looking at 34 to 21.
34-21. We're all pretty close in there. We all think it's, I guess, between their 7 and an 11-point game. Can't wait, guys. I can't wait to see you guys in Orlando. Appreciate everybody coming to watch the live stream. It's kind of packed right now. Thank you guys for all joining. Make sure y'all go check out at Spearatics on YouTube. Follow Chris's YouTube channel at Den Media Group. Big Game James _36 on Twitter. It's at Spearatics on Twitter as well. You can find me at Renegade Report 1 on Twitter. Just the Renegade Report at YouTube. And you can check out my regular site as well, Renegade Report at Substack.com. Go subscribe there. We're about 2/3 of the way to partner status on YouTube. So if you're in here watching, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for joining. We got another big show next week. We're going to have me and Chris and James, good buddies, Seymour on here next week, and also Sam from the Listen Up podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank y'all for joining us. You guys got anything? Thank y'all for coming, buddy.
Go Knowles.
Go Knowles, baby.